Good evening and welcome to episode number 2 of Clout 941, the hottest news show on Sarasota Politics and really the only show on television about Sarasota politics. We have an email address now, which is another new thing that we're excited about. It's clout941@yahoo.com. So if you have any questions you want to ask of future guests, just email them to me at clout941@yahoo.com. Our next two guests the following 2 weeks is going to be State Representative Doug Holder, the Republican, and his Democrat challenger, Sam Rosenfeld. So if you have any questions for either of those two gentlemen, just send them to my email. Second is my telephone number, and what I'm going to do is I've decided to give out my personal cell phone number to all the viewers so that you can get in touch with me 24/7 if you have any questions or concerns or things to say about the show. My personal cell phone number should be on the screen throughout the night, and it's 941-928-0862. We're excited about tonight's guest, which we're going to get to in just a few minutes after my commentary. But as many of you who saw the first show saw, the first guest was a Republican sheriff candidate, Tom Knight, and tonight is his Democratic opponent, Curt Lavarello, and we're excited about that. My commentary tonight is about the editorial page of the Sarasota Hearld Tribune. One of the things that you find out whenever you run for office and you're out there talking to voters in the community, going door to door, going to different events, is so many of them come up to you and say, you know, I just don't know who to vote for in local races. I just don't know who to vote for judge or county commission. I don't know these people, hospital board. And so, unfortunately, what a lot of them do is they look to the Hearld Tribune to try to decide who to vote for. And they look to the endorsement page that gets run over and over and over again. And since so many of the people are out there, voters who do that, I think it's important for the voters to know exactly what the process is behind the Hearld Tribune's endorsement of candidates and how they operate. Now, first is the way that they claim that they operate, which is that they interview candidates, they have them fill out a list of questionnaires, and there's a big panel of people that objectively listens and pontificates and listens to their answers and then tries to ruminate and decide who they're going to endorse. That is the way that they claim they do it, and there are kernels of truth in that. Candidates do fill out questionnaires, they do provide references, although in many cases these references are never called, and I do not believe that most of the answers that are given to these questionnaires ever actually get read prior to a decision being made. The other reality about the Hearld Tribune is it isn't a large panel of people trying to decide who they're going to endorse. Really, the endorsements are dominated and decided by one person, and that's the editor-in-chief, Tom Tryon, the opinion editor. The problem with this system right now in Sarasota County is that essentially one man, Tom Tryon, has way too much influence over who gets elected, particularly in the small local races. Now, since Tom Tryon took over as the opinion editor of the Hearld Tribune, what was already a left-leaning newspaper has took a much more leftward tilt, and that is why the circulation of the Hearld Tribune has declined. In my opinion, the Hearld Tribune is out of touch with many of the people in the community, and that's why circulation continues to go down, and they continue to have to lay off employees. People still use the Hearld Tribune for local races to rely on their recommendations because they just don't know who to vote for. I stood outside the early polling places every single day during the primaries, and I saw voter after voter walk up to the polling place with the Hearld Tribune's recommendation actually cut out, and they were walking up to the polling place with it. Well, the other thing that Tom Tryon's done since he took over the Hearld Tribune is he runs these recommendations over and over and over again. 8-10 times they're in the newspaper. And there's a reason for this. He is trying to influence the outcome of the elections. Well, that's the reason for this show. Hopefully you won't have to rely on the Hearld Tribune's recommendation. You can see these candidates for yourself, and you can decide who you're going to vote for. And certainly if you saw last week's show and this week's show, you'll be an informed voter on the sheriff's race. So really what they do in the Hearld Tribune is they start backwards. They decide who they're going to endorse, and then they work backwards and come up with the reasons why. That is the reality. I'm going to prove that is the reality, and here's how I'm going to prove it. In my commentary in next week's show, I'm going to tell you race by race exactly who the Hearld Tribune is going to endorse in every race before they do it. Now, I wasn't part of the interview process, so there should be no way I should know this, but I know how they think, I know how they work, and I know how they operate, and I bet you I'll nail every single one of them right down the line. And that will prove to all the viewers of this show that the Hearld Tribune makes up their minds who they're going to endorse before they even start the process. And that's my commentary for today. Now, once again, very excited about this guest who's here today, a good friend of mine, Curt Lavarello. Curt, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it.
Curt, tell the viewers a little bit about your family.
Well, I got lost my father about a year and a half ago. He was a World War II veteran, and we were very proud of my father's accomplishments in the U.S. Army. We laid him to rest right up the road at the military cemetery. And my mom lives locally here. She lives down in Venice, in Bay Indies, and she's just a great lady. Was a great parents and instilled a lot of pride in us and a lot of values in us. So very proud to have grown up in the household I did. And I got a brother who lives up in Chiefland and a sister who's up in Nashville as a chief nurse right now.
Okay, great. Sounds good. Now, tell us a little bit about your law enforcement background.
Ron, I bring 28 years to the table. I've started my law enforcement career over in Broward County. I worked in many different divisions of law enforcement over there, served on patrol, a patrol supervisor. I also went to work as a detective at the age of 23. I guess I often joke because I started in Fort Lauderdale and I worked the beach area, and I was 18 years old, had all my hair then, and I was about 100 pounds lighter, so life couldn't get any better. But I have to tell you, I enjoyed my law enforcement career. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Went on after a successful 25-year career in the law enforcement arena. I left it supervising a school resource officer unit and went on to actually apply for and was accepted as the head of the National Association of School Resource Officers. I was their third executive director hired, so I spent the next 5 years after that traveling the country, really lobbying for issues that were important for school safety, keeping teachers safe, kids safe. And 3 years ago, took the job here as the head of the Substance Abuse Coalition, which is what I continue to do today here as the director. Okay.
Can you tell us a little about that? Because that's actually a subject that interests me greatly, and I have a lot of respect for the work you do. Why don't you tell the viewers a little bit?
Yeah, I got into it. The Substance Abuse Coalition are made up of community leaders who we look at issues in the community that are pertinent to substance abuse, obviously. And right now we have your viewers would be interested to know, our substance abuse problem is off the charts here in Sarasota County. I mean, hence the reason why we have an overcrowded jail. And right now we lead the state in substance abuse overdoses as they pertain to pharmaceutical drugs. We're higher than Miami, we're higher than Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, Tampa, some of the cities that there's absolutely no rhyme or reason for it, but we are. And ironically, it's what got me into this race, because I sat back and I continued to watch our county leaders cut the prevention dollars in our community, yet well, they're going to charge the taxpayer here over $100 million. It may rise before it opens for a new jail. And we know that 85 to 90% of those cases are substance abuse related cases that are sitting down in that jail. So it lacks reason to think that we're going to cut prevention yet add more jail space. Jails can't be the answer, or else we might as well build 5 parcels of land and build 5 jails along the interstate, because we'll fill them all in a 5 to 10 year period.
Yeah, that's why I think the first time I saw you at a campaign event 3 or 4 months ago, I told you that we were running for the same reasons. That's the same reason why I ran for public defender.
Absolutely, I remember your
prescription drug abuse. Yeah, it's horrible. I don't understand why Sarasota is #1 in Florida in that either. But anyway, we had some fun last week with Tom Knight. We were trying to find out a little bit about Tom Knight, the guy, and
sure.
So that's what we want to do with you too.
Absolutely.
We asked him, and we're going to ask you, what's a historical figure, maybe someone in history that you would most like to sit down and have lunch with someday? I mean, if you could bring him back to life, let's say.
Well, I don't consider him a historical figure. I'd love to bring my father back and sit down and have lunch with him again one day and ask him questions that I never got a chance to answer of his service in the war and what it meant for him to be So he was a very quiet man. He was about the war, yet I hold on to all his medals today, and I sit there and I go through them wondering what each one of them truly meant to him when he was in war. He never talked to his kids about the war at all. But I think if I had to go further back than that, I'd probably like to bring back Abraham Lincoln and talk to Abraham Lincoln about his stance and his stance on equality because that's really what I've been about since I've been a law enforcement officer.
Okay. We have to go to break. We'll see you when we come back.